Okay, so I'm going to be covering some stuff in the Karen Reed case, and I just really want to have a conversation about these footprints. Maybe I missed it, but I've looked and looked, and I haven't seen anybody, not like online, and certainly not mentioned anywhere in court about these footprints. And so this is one of the clips that they played on in the trial. And you can look at this specific footage. Now, this white car here is Mr. Cameron. His daughter was here at the house, and she was alone. He had been wakened that, something had happened to Mr. O'Keefe, and that means their daughter's home alone. So he gets dressed, and he comes over to this house to get his daughter. And so that's explaining, why he's here. And I'm not going to play the whole video, right? But I just want people to see these footprints right here. Okay, they look to be not from a small person. The width apart shows that it's, probably a tall person. This right foot is slightly in front of the left foot, like somebody's, I don't know, maybe squatting. I don't know. But it's just where they're located. And this is right here. This is the car. This is Miss Reed's car. Now, this is about 6:30 in the morning. He was awakened about 6-something in the morning. He said, he cleaned off his car window and whatever. So probably took him maybe 20 minutes or so before he ended up at this house. So it's probably in between, somewhere around 6:30 a.m. So then later you'll see a video of the police make a point to wear their body cams and their dash cams when they arrive at this house. And they notice that the tail light is missing from her car. They said they didn't notice it then while they were there, but they noticed it later in the video. Okay, well, this is the problem with that, is that where's the footage showing who made these footprints? Where's the footage showing Miss Reed when she arrived home after she dropped off her boyfriend at that house? It would show her getting out of her car, because this is how she parked, because when she left in the morning, she had to back up her car like that to go look for him. So when she came back, she parked her car this way. Okay, there's just, I guess, too much snow or whatever. But whatever reason, her car's parked this way. So you should have been able to see when she got home. You would have camera footage of, how she was driving. When you see her getting out of the car, you would have seen that she wasn't intoxicated or whatever. You have a lab report that was done on her at the hospital. And of course, the only person who had control of that was the state police, who said that they towed her car at a certain time. And her brother has footage showing that that was not the time that it was actually towed. So there's a lie in that. So it's very hard to trust anything they're doing based on, I'm going to share with you specific testimony where the police are actually caught in perjury, caught in lies in the courtroom. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. But I'm going to show you, I'll share that in a minute. So these footprints right here, where's the footage that shows exactly who made these footprints? Because when you see earlier when the cops came up here, he comes up here and messes with the door and it goes back there. So you could see before he gets out of his car, these footprints were here, these footprints were here. He did not make these footprints. So he kind of comes over this way. He did not make these footprints here. He did not make these footprints here. Okay? And when the cops came here, their car was parked over here. They did not walk up to the car and look at it. And they testified that they didn't see anything amiss. It wasn't until later they noticed in a video, and they were there about 8-something in the morning. So it would have been a couple hours after this. They were making a show to come to the house to get the kids. Now, the reason I say they were making a show is because there's body cam and there's dash cam that's missing. And it was really unfair that they weren't allowed to question why there's body cam and dash cam missing. Because the judges made a point to not allow them to say anything in the opening about a third-party culprit. So I think, in my opinion, that's why she's not allowing them to question why there's body cam and dash cam missing or not available or wasn't done or whatever. Okay, so where's the footage? Where's the footage showing, 1, when she arrived home, 2, when she left and came back, her walking around not inebriated, and who made these footprints right here? You would want to think that, that they would want to know where this footage is. Okay? So when the cops came later, they come to claim to get the kids. I don't believe they knew, I don't personally, and I could be wrong, but I don't believe they knew that the house had kids in it, or thought that it did. Because they're, why would they not know that they have already picked the kids up? Why would they have not called somebody to say, hey, are the kids okay? Are they housed by themselves? Why would they go to a house after, kids who are old enough to be home alone by themselves? But why would they have not contacted the family and say, hey, did you get the kids? Why would they just automatically go to the house to pick up kids? And the house was empty. But that, to me, in my mind, was their excuse for going to the house, so that they can have their cameras on and see this taillight was missing, so they can use that in court. And yet there's missing footage of who made these footprints, because they were saying they didn't see anything amiss. And the footage did not show any of them going here and standing near that car. Nobody made these footprints in any video they have shown. So who made these footprints that just happens to be right in front of her tailgate, right at her taillight? Who did that? Please, thank you. Okay, so I maybe somebody knows who made those footprints, and I've just missed it, and I apologize. I've looked though, and I can't find it. Okay, so then I want to talk about the missing shirt. Okay, from what I understand, that there's missing DNA tissue testing wasn't done, or it's lost. Okay, the shirt, I know, I'm a former licensed EMT, and when they're trying to save a life, they're not going to be trying to save your clothes. They're going to just cut them right straight off in a very fast fashion. But in a homicide, they're not going to just throw that away. Okay, that's going to be preserved. When you have a bunch of cops on the scene and paramedics show up, okay, everything is evidence. So where's the shirt? It could show the tear marks on the shirt. It would have DNA on it. Okay, and it could have been tested for canine DNA. Now I want to talk about specifically an officer who lied on the stand. And so there's an officer, and I'll put the link to the video, because I've watched different sources, and I will tell you right now, if somebody's doing a live stream, I'm going to watch the channel who allows the live chat replay, okay? Because people are commenting things. You might have townies in there who knows things. I want to see comments, okay? Because you can actually learn things from comments. It doesn't mean because somebody commented something it's true, but there may be something that somebody knows, that may be speaking out. And I swear I've learned things through blogs from that's over a year old. Okay, so this guy... Oh my goodness. Sergeant Lank. Let's talk about him. Day 5. I use the Court TV channel. So he's on the stand, and the defense lawyer's asking him about what happened when Mr. Albert, Chris Albert, approached him in a parking lot, and some guys he apparently got into some conflict with some guys, and they were there. He runs over there and tells them, oh, these guys are bothering me, and then he was like, oh no, here they are, and then the guys come over, they're there. The guy, Mr. Sergeant Link, gets out. He's not on duty. Gets out of his car and gets in a fight with them. And according to him, he was struck first. Okay, but then the defense lawyer says, well, that's not what their version is. And his statement was, well, I have no idea what their version is. That, in my opinion, was perjury. And so what the defense lawyer says is, well, what about the lawsuit? See, those guys sued that officer, and they settled out of court. And the guy he admits he had to sign a non-disclosure. It's like, okay, how can you sit there on the stand and say you have no idea what their version is when they sued you and gave you their version in writing? Okay, via a summons. But before they sued him, before they settled out of court, and he had to sign a non-disclosure, they went to the police station to file a formal complaint on the guy. Said that he assaulted them, even bit them, and drew blood. The guy bit him. Like, okay, whatever. And so then they were turned away, not allowed to file a charge or file a complaint. They were just turned away. Like, yeah, we don't want to hear you. And then they had charges on him. They filed charges on him after they tried to file a formal complaint on the guy. And those charges were thrown out, and the judge would not allow the result of those charges to even be discussed to the jury. Well, that was messed up. So then there was another incident where another Albert, I think it was Tim Albert, Sergeant Link had to and in fairness to Sergeant Link, I don't think it was up to him. It wasn't his call on what kind of end result that he had. To me, that was like really nonsensical of the defense lawyer to present that. Like, he was pointing out that this guy, Tim Albert, had hit a car at a stoplight, and he had a leaking oil, and he did a hit and run, and it ended up at the very house where this Mr. O'Keefe died. Oh my goodness, yet another hit and run of this family. There's an alleged, and I say alleged, I'm not saying that it's not true, I'm just saying it's alleged, and I tried to look for the court reg and couldn't find it. I tried to look for the court record of this elected state person or whatever, Chris Albert, had done a hit and run in the 1990s, allegedly. I haven't seen the original media report. I have not seen the court record, but I have seen blogs where people tried to talk about it over a year ago, and he sent letters out not demanding that it wasn't true, but demanding that they not discuss his criminal record, that it was harassment. Now, you can, if it's expunged, if you're managed to get a record expunged, it's not, and under Massachusetts law, it's not allowed to be discussed in court. But that doesn't mean voters can't discuss it, but whatever. Anyways, so here we are at in 2000, that was in 1990, so in 2009, this guy, Tim Albert, he does a hit and run, and the Sergeant Link goes and finds him, follows the oil trail, and he said, well, okay, so I panicked, but he got a very light, sentence or whatever, which eventually was expunged because it was a deferred sentence. So he points out to Sergeant Link that it was deferred. Well, that's not between him. Sergeant Link doesn't have control. The DA is the one that makes those decisions on what they're charged with. He just does up the report, sends the evidence to the DA, and the DA is the one that makes those choices. Okay, I'm not a supporter of the defense, and I'm definitely not a supporter of the state. I've just seen too many shady things, just by my looking for myself, not by anything that I read online. Like mainstream media articles or whatever. Okay, and I'm not saying that she's not innocent. I'm not saying that she's not getting a crappy deal. I do believe she's getting an awful deal. But I want to talk about Karen. What I feel her biggest challenges are is not so much the uphill battle that I feel some of this stuff they're doing is super biased, and they're definitely doing some shady stuff. And the fact that the FBI did investigate, according to the defense attorney, and found their own analysis, it was that car did not hit that man. That car did not hit that man. And the first time I saw those pictures on his arm, I'm like, yeah, that's a dog attack. That's a dog attack. Sorry, that's not from tailgate or glass. Oh my gosh, that's a dog attack. And I'm gonna share a video that if anybody, okay, I'm talking to anybody who's for or against, their belief in what happened. I'm just asking you, like I'm trying to do, despite what I feel strongly about things, I'm still trying to keep my heart and my mind open, because I think you're supposed to prove all things, and I think you're supposed to hear all things, okay? And so there are some things that all those who are absolutely for her innocence has not discussed, but even with the evidence that they claim they have, there's something that's super strong evidence that they claim to have against her that I haven't really seen a lot of people discussing, and that's the EDR. That's the car EDR. The car electronic data report. I don't even think people are aware of this, but like your newer cars, I think it's from like 2014 and newer, there's how planes have black boxes? Well, cars have their own black box. And I mean, some of these, oh my gosh, some of these are like privacy invasions, like the most newer cars. Oh my goodness. The stuff they're doing, like facial recognition. If you're they're gonna like tell on you if you're driving when you're tired. It's gone techno crazy. But anyways, so most of the cars you can plug in your phone. You can have all your contacts are in there, stored in that car. People can hack cars and get contacts that way. It's crazy. But one of the things the black box does is it can really, insurances use them. Insurance love black boxes. They love the EDR, car EDR. So it can tell them when a car was speeding, how long that they braked, if they braked at all. Somebody's saying, I braked, and, they can tell if somebody's lying, basically. If a car, where it's located by GPS locations, where it's located, when it was located, if it had an impact, what the speed of the car was when it had the impact, when that person braked. It's a lot of detail. It's like DNA type of evidence. It's very strong evidence. And so the problem with even that being strong evidence is going to be who's presenting it. How is the defense going to hire an expert to prove that that is manipulated? Are they going to be allowed to get that black box and have their own experts and analyze it? Are they even going to be allowed to do that? And if they don't, that'd just be strong, evidence for appeal if she doesn't win. But that's one of the things that they have, or claim they have. So then you have her own statements that are so problematic. I'm trying to be neutral and just trying to look at the facts. I don't believe her statements mean she's guilty. I just mean that they're very problematic. I think she was drinking that night. And, I think that when she first showed up, from what I understand, at the house, she was saying, that he went in that house. She says at one point in an interview, and I'm going to show you in a minute, she said, I watched him go up to that door. And then later she says, did I hit him? Like she's questioning her memory. But her own father, not meaning to harm her daughter, says something different. He says in an interview, like on Dateline or something like that, I'm fixing to show you. He says, at the hospital, she says, Dad, I think I may have hit him. And he says, what do you mean? Well, I think I hit something. So she's questioning, and I believe, now of course they manipulate how much of the conversation with her father about specific things is revealed. It could have been that when she realized that her tail light was cracked, that's when people were saying, the authorities say her tail light was cracked. They use the word cracked, but later it's completely missing, right? And so that's it's like shattered in lots of pieces. It's not just cracked. That's where I think they zoned in, because she said something about, her tail light was cracked, and people are like, okay, well, no big deal, it's cracked. Okay. But I think she may have questioned her memory. And that's where they zoned in, that she made herself an easy target for a framing job. That, again, how on earth is she going to hit a 6'2" man if she lets him out and rams into him and creates a 6-foot gash on the back of his skull? Now, if she had, let's suppose she bumps him and he falls down, and then she rams him again, then that's exactly, she would have had to hit him twice. And that's what the car should show, that the data should show that there was 2 impacts. Because unless he fell to the ground, or maybe they were arguing and he's got his arm on the car and, and she's taken off and then she sees him fall on the ground. I'm trying to use everything in my mind just to try to imagine how that head and the back of his skull happened. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up, is my point. So let's say, just go with me. I'm just trying to imagine, how could this happen, right? So let's say that he fell to the ground and then she backs directly into his head and maybe the tailpipe or something hit the back of his skull. If you're hitting his body with a car, you're going to have consistent pattern of injury. You're not going to have, on the front of his hand is a bruise and a whole bunch of stuff right on inside of his arm. And then the back of his head is going to be this huge gash and skull fractures. That's not consistent with one impact. You can't, it's just not consistent in any way you look at it. It's not. And I am so thankful to have learned after my reasoning and thinking that I'm not just this person that thinks things that has no sense about it. Because guess who else thinks the way I think? And a lot of other people. The FBI. According to the defense lawyer, they're saying that they did reconstruction analysis, 3 PhDs, and they all concluded it's not consistent that car hit based on what is going on with her car. And that's what I've been saying, like the taillight is irrelevant. I think they just zoned in on the taillight to create a story because she made a comment about her taillight being cracked. Okay? So, again, who made the footprints? Why were they at her tailgate? Why were they at her taillight? And why were they going down here? Go and look at the videos. Go and look at all these videos, and you're in these live streams. Go and look at these videos. Go and look at them, and you will see there's a trail. And where's the footage? Please, where's the footage? This is when the cops are there. They're there at 8:24. Okay, see that time? They didn't go anywhere near this car. They did not go up this driveway here. They didn't go up this driveway here. Stand here looking at her taillight, do anything to her taillight, because there's footprints here. Okay? They didn't go near this car. Well, based on what they presented of their, maybe they did go there, but I'm sorry. That taillight, the footprints was there at 6:30 in the morning. So it was probably done in the middle of the night. Probably like around 2:30 when somebody's making Google searches about how long does it take for somebody to die laying in the snow or something like that. The Jen McCabe Google searches. Okay. That's probably when she was, it had to happen after she parked her car there. I believe she left with some other people. So maybe it was her. But I'm just saying, where's the footage? There's a camera right here. Okay. And so where's the footage? Now do note, this is when the cops come there. It's like 8-something in the morning. And you can't see the footprints because it's snowing. And it's been snowing for a while. So those footprints are covered up. But they were there at 6:30 in the morning when Mr. Cameron was there. Well, before he got there. Okay, and if you watch this video, they don't come up here and stand here facing that way at that taillight. These guys do not do that. So that's why the footage to see who made those footprints is important. And if you're somebody who questions those lacerations on Mr. O'Keefe's arm, this guy is a cop, or former cop, or retired cop, and he's police dog training specialist. Okay, he's been doing it for many years. He appears to be a very credible source. They should probably hire him as an expert witness. I think he would meet the criteria for expert witness for sure. He has definitely looked at many more dog bites, way more than medical examiners, your average medical examiner has ever seen, because that's his specialty, is dog bites and dog training, police dog training, specifically German Shepherds. And he can tell you with detail exactly, he can show you videos how they train them. And that's when I see where those locations of lacerations were. I'm like, oh my gosh, they have a German Shepherd. Oh my goodness. And then you can see video of another person actually being attacked, and where they go after, and they go for that limb. And it's so consistent. Now, this is a rubber prosthetic and that they use for training purposes. So the laceration's going to look thinner because it's rubber, But if you look at pictures of human beings who've been attacked, it's so similar. It's so almost identical. I'm telling you, this man will testify, and he's had other specialists look at those pictures, and there's no doubt about it. That's a dog attack. He was attacked by a dog, which would easily explained. Now, the problem I see with the defense and the father making accusations that someone sucker punched him or somebody beat him up, honestly, maybe that happened and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't believe anybody beat that man up. I just don't feel that. I think that the dog attacked him, and I think that he fell, but based on the strength of that dog, and maybe the dog was coming at him, at a speed and knocked him over into something. And it's not consistent for him to have fallen outside and hit his head on something. He wasn't on a curb where he could have hit his head. He was outside. His body was laying in snow with the hat missing, with the shoe missing. Okay, and so it's easy to say that he was attacked if he was not seeing it coming. Now, they made a point of the owner of the dog talking about how when they were confronting him about sometimes the dog got loose, but how he took the dog upstairs. But let me tell you something, okay? I have standard poodles, and my dog's never been vicious, but I'll tell you what, my dogs can. I have one dog in particular, Melody. She passed in January, and so I was a breeder of dogs. When I went to law school, I did breed standard poodles. I showed them, I health tested them, the whole 9 yards, and I did a temperament test on them when they were 49 days old. And you can see the hunting instinct in them at that age. So if you have somebody who wants one for hunting, because they were used for hunting, or if you want them for a therapy dog, or if you just want them for a pet, you can tell their personalities at that age. But there's one dog that I had, and I'm just using it as an example. You can put a dog in a fenced area, and they're submissive, they're docile. And my girl, I'll put her outside in the fenced area, and she stayed in the fenced area, okay, and that was her play area, and keep her safe. Where I live, you never want your dogs to run loose. So just because it's rural, and people shoot dogs and stuff, and it's just for their safety, for crying out loud. At any rate, so I have this fenced area, and she would always stay in the fenced area. But one time, there was like a squirrel, and she was my hunter of the pack. She was my hunter. She'd be at that tree sniffing and waiting out squirrels, in the yard or whatever. When I'm outside, I've got pictures of her doing that. But one time, she saw something, and she scaled that fence like she didn't know there was a fence there in a split second. So when you think that you have your dogs contained, and when under a normal circumstances they're being obedient, you take them in a contained area. But when they feel like they are having to protect their owner, let me tell you what, I've seen videos of dogs going through windows. Okay, my standard poodles can open a door. My dogs are so smart, literally can turn lights off and on. Didn't have to train them. They can open car doors. They can open. I'm just telling you, that dog, if they were, say, play fighting like you saw him at the bar, and maybe the dog saw, or heard something, or thought this was already an aggressive dog. You've got strangers in the house. The dog is probably on super high alert if he's an aggressive dog and has fear, social behaviors going on, and he hears a bunch of people. You got a party going on. This dog is on its edge. And if he saw something, that dog could have just jumped. It could have got loose unexpectedly and took out him, jumped him, and he fell over and it hit his head, and it was bad. And they probably panicked, and that's when those Google searches that an expert's going to testify that was made by Jen McCabe or somebody using her device. Now let's talk about the phones. They're saying the phones say that his phones say he never made it inside the house. Well, that's according to them. But they have their own. I think he was wearing a fit thing, like one of those Apple things, and it shows that he was going up and down the stairs. So they have their own independent evidence that, yes, he was inside that house. Okay, so, but in fairness to people who are believing that she's, I've heard people confronting her when she was outside the courthouse speaking out that she didn't do it, and they know who did. They're saying, well, why did you admit it? Why did you admit it? Why did you admit it? She didn't admit it, but she did make comments that are problematic, that are contradicting herself, and her own father made comments that contradicted her. Not meaning to, but again, in the interview, he says, well, she said she thinks she did it. But again, that could have been whoever did the interview manipulating the rest of the conversation, where because she saw a cracked tail light, and that shows a video where she backed out and she clipped a car, just barely tapped it, and that was enough to crack. But it wasn't like fractured. There wasn't, wasn't like missing pieces. And it's so ridiculous for pieces all of a sudden to show up on top of snow. It'd been different, like they're saying that when the snow melted, they found more pieces. Okay, that would have been more plausible. That wouldn't have garnered suspicion. But when you've got pieces on top of snow after everybody or all these people had been there and they were looking and they didn't find anything, and then all of a sudden you have a state trooper who's now under investigation with the FBI, or you've got people handling things that are under investigation. It wasn't, by the way, it wasn't the local police that towed that car off. It was the state officer who came and got that car. But they took the car to the Canton Police Department and gave them access to it. That was not proper. Why is the state handling it instead of the local police? But anyway, so that's problematic, especially, no, let's not talk about those cups and the bag and those wipe rags, and oh my gosh, she really has an uphill battle, because they're going to boil down to whether or not they're going to be allowed to argue the third-party culprit, whether they're going to be allowed to bring in all the evidence that they have, and basically, she has a very strong appeal if she doesn't win. But so these are the things that I've found this far, and I want to also say that I apologize that I didn't make it known. I usually do in most of my videos for the people who are new to my channel. People comment on my channel and they get frustrated. They get mad at YouTube and they're like, they're deleting my comments. And I'm like, guys, I'm so sorry. I try to make it known in most all my videos, but when I'm covering something like this, I do get people that probably are not used to my channel. I'm like the Walmart channel. I have a lot of things on my channel. So I have a lot of gaming things. I have like crochet, acrylic pour painting. I have my dogs. I have random vlogs, various things, a playlist on my front channel. But one thing that I do is I do gaming. And I did a lot of, I'm a gamer. I'm a disabled person. I'm a combat veteran from the Gulf War, and I'm disabled. And so I do, during the winter months, I do a lot of gaming. And so there are young people who come to my channel, and I try to take extra steps to make it's a safe place, especially since I do live streams and stuff like that for like giveaways and stuff like that. There's so many trolls on YouTube. Oh my gosh. I had somebody go to one of my older videos that had a lot of views and a lot of comments and literally commented on every single comment, trolling not like in a negative way, just wanting attention to their channel, and spammed every single comment. Then there's your scammers, and I try to protect my commenters. So this is a safe place. You're not going to be spammed. You're not going to be cussed out. You're not going to have somebody, just spamming you and all this other stuff. And I generally, I don't like a bunch of nonsense. And so I do hold all comments for review by default. And I do attend to those comments. And I do have a profanity filter. Okay. So I try to keep my channel PG. Okay. So I do welcome all comments, and even if I don't agree with you, just, don't cuss me out if you don't like what I'm saying. Just be civil, and I'll talk to you. I'm not going to hold back somebody's opinion because it's different than mine. I'm just saying, please be civil, and I want an open discussion. I don't mind talking to people that think she's guilty. I don't mind, because, I'm just trying to be respectful. I'm not a fan of hers. I'm just like looking at this case, like I just look at the facts and I do research. I read cases, like I go, for any way that I can, I will look up court records, statutes, just stuff like that. I like legal cases, but specifically I like anything to do with corruption, because one of the things that I've done in my life is I do advocate for legislation. I'm currently dealing with legislators because I'm a stalking victim, and I've had some serious problems. I'm a former Native American tribal member. I had to leave my tribal membership because of some horrible things, oppressive things going on, and political in the state that I live in, super hot topics when it comes to Native Americans and Indians. And I'm just like, I didn't sign up for this. So I personally am dealing with legislation to deal with corruption, specifically corruption, okay? And so I believe that the problem is it lies within legislation. That people, I feel like the best thing that people can do is to go after their legislators and pressure them and demand that there needs to be a federal legislation for the Anti-Corruption Act or something like that. And I believe that a lot of times the FBI sees things and then they may see evidence of a crime done by officers, but they will choose whether or not it meets the threshold of what they want to prosecute. And that is wrong. And I personally had a situation with that. I had an FBI investigation in my own situation where they did acknowledge that they did suppress evidence of crimes, and they did lie. They lied in federal court, and they lied. And so, I have recorded conversations with FBI, and they just chose not to prosecute. And I feel like and here's the problem. Here's the problem, and here's how you resolve it. I'm a troubleshooter. This is what I do. Here's how you resolve it. You pass legislation that mandates prosecution. If an officer is found to knowingly have lied in a report, not like he got the facts wrong or he believed wrong, knowingly falsifies anything in a report. And most all states have. It's a felony to lie in a police report, including cops, right? There are statutes. There are laws that make what they do prosecutable. But the problem is they don't prosecute. But if you make a mandatory law and treat corruption as victims who need a remedy, victims who need protection. So anybody who's been a victim of police corruption, such as they've lied in a report, they omitted facts of a crime done against them, or they lied on the person in a way that could lead them to being charged, it must be mandated, their removal from power. It's over, their career is done. It's over. And I'm not talking they got the facts wrong, I'm talking they knowingly lied. If you have evidence that shows they knowingly lied, it's mandated to be prosecuted. Period. End of story. That's the legislation our country needs. And also to give remedy to the victim, to go to either an attorney general. And here's another thing. Your State Bureau of Investigations, more often than not, don't have any ability to take personal reports from people. They only take internal referring of corrupted persons in office or in power. You have to be an agency, somebody internally. Basically, they have to tell on themselves. That's just a setup for corruption to continue. Like their good old boy system, they ain't telling on each other unless they get mad at somebody. So they need to have federal legislation where citizens are allowed to take reports to the state, and this will help the state as well, because a lot of times they can't even get anything initiated unless it's something sent to them. Okay? So the people should be allowed to report to a State Bureau of Investigation and get funds appropriated to them to handle, incoming complaints. And if there's sufficient evidence, they can initiate an investigation. I mean, that's what's missing. That's why corruption has increased in our country. And, I'm not against cops. I'm not against cops. I'm not for defund the police or any other nonsense. But they have to earn my trust because there's just too much corruption in our country. And think about those who want to tell, like you've had movies and stories about where there's such a magnitude of corruption in one police department, usually in big cities, and somebody tries to stand up against it. Do you think they're not going to be retaliated against? Do you think they're not going to be shoved out the door? You think they're not going to be attacked themselves if they try to tell on one of their own? I mean, they need protected too. You've got to make it. The legislation is, anyways. That's my point. Is all about legislation, and there's definitely outside this case. This case is not just about the Karen Reed and Mr. O'Keefe, who's the victim. Okay, there's so many side stories coming out in this trial, showing how there's a force of oppression here, and it's not uncommon. Like it's Massachusetts is not standing out like any worse than the other states. Okay, so It's some crazy stuff though going on in this trial. Oh my goodness, the leaf blower. I'm so glad that this defense lawyer got this guy to admit that if you've moved anything that's continued, they were talking about what's manipulation. Why do you preserve a police, crime scene is to prevent, contamination and to prevent manipulation. And I can only imagine his closing. He's going to be like, and he said on such and such date that if you move anything around in a crime scene, it's considered manipulation. And then he's going to show the leaf blower of him blowing that snow around. You don't think that moved the glass? They weren't even able to take pictures of how his body was laying, how the glass was laying. That's all forensic stuff. You think that the snow blowing around didn't blow around the small pieces of glass? They should have just took a heater, not one that blew, just took a heat lamp and just set it all over that area to melt that snow. Put it in a tent. Well, they didn't talk about doing a tent. We didn't know. You should have tented that spot. Put some heat lamps in it, melt that snow, and then take pictures like crazy and collect anything right there. Hello. Anyways, that's all I'm going to say right now, but I am digging and digging, and so I appreciate everybody and your comment, and even those who may not agree with me, it's okay, I'm not going to be mad at you, just don't be mean, okay? Anyways, let me know what you think, and I hope you have a blessed day. Bye!